A mistake, billions of atoms, and an invisible death. Chernobyl was the day humanity was defeated by its own power. That night, between April 25th and April 26th, the city of Pripyat in northern Ukraine was silent. The cool spring air whispered over the waters of the Dnieper River, and in the distance, the monotonous hum of the night shift machinery could be heard. Yet that night, one of the darkest chapters in human history would be written. Reactor number 4 of the Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant was about to become a disaster that would affect the entire world within minutes. Chernobyl was one of the pride projects of the Soviet Union. Built in the 1970s, this massive facility was constructed at a time when nuclear energy was seen as the power of the future. The RBMK-type reactors, celebrated for Soviet engineering, provided cheap electricity and were considered a symbol of technological progress. Pripyat was a city built specifically for the plant. Wide streets, theaters, schools, children's parks, and a giant Ferris wheel erected for the May Day celebrations, full of hope and confidence in the future. Yet beneath this modernity lay a dangerous secret. RBMK reactors were highly risky by Western standards. Their safety systems were insufficient, the reactor cores used graphite moderators, and design flaws could cause instability during emergencies. These deficiencies were known but concealed by Soviet authorities to maintain the image of perfection. On the night of April 25, 1986, the night shift was assigned to conduct a test on the reactor. The purpose was to examine how long the turbines could generate electricity if the external power supply was cut off. This test had been planned before but had failed previously. That night, nothing went according to plan. The start of the test had already been delayed multiple times. Orders from Moscow required the operation to proceed. When the experiment began, most engineers on duty were fatigued, and there were no experienced nuclear specialists present. Around 1 a.m., the reactor's power unexpectedly dropped. Normally, this would have meant halting the experiment, but the orders were clear: the test would continue. The operators withdrew safety rods to rebalance the system and disabled cooling mechanisms, putting the reactor's stability at risk. At 1:23:04 a.m., a series of incorrect decisions triggered a physical chain reaction. A sudden surge of energy occurred, water turned to steam, pressure built up, and in that instant, control was lost. The explosion hurled the 1,000-ton steel lid of the reactor into the air. The building's roof was destroyed, uranium fuel rods, graphite blocks, and radioactive materials were scattered into the atmosphere. Flames lit up the sky in blue, the color caused by ionized radiation interacting with the air. In that moment, the largest nuclear release in human history had begun. Engineers in the control room had no idea what had happened. They assumed it was a small hydrogen explosion. Nobody considered that the reactor had been completely destroyed. One operator ran outside and saw the reactor building glowing with a blue light, visible radiation. Within minutes, firefighters were called from Pripyat. The first responders were unaware of the radiation hazard. To them, it was a normal fire. Young firefighters climbed the roof, where blocks of graphite glowed, completely exposed to lethal radiation. That night, 28 firefighters would eventually die within weeks, their lungs burned, their skin scorched, yet none abandoned their duty. The people of Pripyat awoke that morning believing everything was under control. Authorities claimed there was no danger. Children went to school. People went to work. Meanwhile, an invisible enemy blanketed the city. Radiation levels were thousands of times higher than Hiroshima. Residents experienced metallic tastes, nausea, and headaches. Early on April 26, workers at the Forsmark nuclear plant in Sweden detected elevated radiation levels. Tracing the source, winds pointed to Ukraine. The Soviets could no longer hide the truth. Within 48 hours, the Kremlin officially admitted that an accident had occurred. Yet the full scale was still concealed. By the morning of April 27, Pripyat's evacuation began. Authorities told the population this was a temporary measure, and they would return within hours. No one took their belongings. Toys, photos, and pets were left behind. 50,000 people were removed from the city in just a few hours, but none would return. A 30-kilometer exclusion zone was established immediately around Chernobyl. Even outside this area, radiation was dangerous. The Soviet government sent soldiers and volunteers into the zone to manage the aftermath. These people were called liquidators. About 600,000 individuals worked in radioactive areas. Lead aprons and simple gas masks were their only protection. Spending more than 90 seconds on the roof could be lethal. Thousands of soldiers poured concrete around the reactor, dug up radioactive soil, and buried dead animals. These operations continued for months. Many liquidators died within a few years from cancer or heart failure. Most of their tombstones bear a single word: liquidator. By the end of 1986, a massive concrete sarcophagus was built around the reactor to contain radiation. However, it was not perfect. Cracks began appearing over the years. In 2016, with international support, a colossal steel dome, the new safe confinement, was constructed. Weighing 36,000 tons, it was designed to last 100 years. Still beneath it, the molten reactor core, the so-called lava-like fuel mass, remains deadly. The health effects of the disaster lasted for decades. According to the World Health Organization, immediately after the accident, 134 people suffered acute radiation sickness, of whom 28 died within weeks. Over the years, especially in children, cases of thyroid cancer increased. In Belarus and Ukraine, tens of thousands of cases were reported. Official figures attribute approximately 4,000 deaths directly or indirectly to radiation. Unofficial estimates reach as high as 90,000. Yet the impact of Chernobyl was not only biological, it affected millions psychologically. Evacuated populations could never return home. They lost their identities, their pasts, and their land. The fear of radiation cast a nuclear shadow over Europe. Today, Pripyat remains silent. The Ferris wheel never turned again. Classrooms are dusty, children's shoes lie abandoned. Yet nature has returned. Wild horses, deer, wolves, and birds have multiplied. Despite the remaining radiation, life thrives where humans withdrew. Chernobyl is no longer just a place, it is a warning. It is a symbol of what happens when human hubris challenges the limits of nature. It was not only a reactor that failed that night, it was an entire system: secrecy, fear, and control. Even now, beneath the reactor lies an unmeasured amount of uranium and plutonium. Scientists still cannot fully predict its behavior. Hotspots occasionally reheat. The possibility of further chain reactions remains. Perhaps Chernobyl's greatest legacy is this: human error must never be forgotten. That night, it was not only a nuclear plant that exploded, humanity's arrogance over nature did as well. Chernobyl has entered history not as a mere number, date, or on a map. It is still a living wound. And from that wound rises a single silent message: hide the truth, and the entire world pays the price.